Hi, this is Sweet June. I'm back doing part two to Can money provide happiness for us? Can money make us happy? And as I was saying in part one, I think that money can provide a measure of happiness. Um, can it make us completely happy? No. I don't believe that it can make us completely happy because there's other things that we need beside money, like love. We need our families. We need God. Number one, we need God, and to have a relationship with God. We all have a spiritual need, and we need love of our families. A lot of us, love to have a mate, and so there's other aspects to life other than money, and there's some things that money just can't buy, and love is one of them. Can't buy love. And so love is very important. We all feel the need to be loved and receive love and give love. So there's other aspects to life other than money. So to say that money provides complete happiness is absurd. Money doesn't provide complete happiness. However, I do think that money can provide a measure of happiness. Um, because for one thing, when you have, um, I know that all these years struggling and everything and being low income, um, when you're low income, you know, um, and your income is at a certain level, you have no options. You're living from paycheck to paycheck and like that. Um, you have no options. When you're poor, you have no options. And I think that's the thing that disturbs me about being poor more than anything is I think that disturbs me most of all about being poor is you have no options. And it's like, if you decide, I remember one time I was living in this an apartment complex. I lived in an apartment and I moved to a townhouse in the same apartment complex. But I loved the townhouse, but I didn't like the apartment. And so, but the apartment is what, I had got on my Section 8 at the time, which I'm no longer on. But, I was on Section 8 at that particular time. And it was just me and my oldest son. And that was when I just had one child. And, they only they give you whatever your family size is, for whatever flat um, they give you is for the size of your family. And so I wanted the townhouse, but I couldn't get the townhouse because it was just me and my son, and that was out of my price range of what I was qualified for Section 8. So I had to take the apartment. I was grateful to have a roof over my head, but um, I really didn't care for the apartment, and it got to the place I got used to the apartment after a while, but it got to the point to where um, I was starting to have some issues in the apartment. And so it got to the place where I really, really wanted to move out of the apartment and I could not move. It was hard for me to move. I mean, I was looking for another place, but then it was hard for me to move because, first of all, I didn't have the money. I didn't have the money to move. So I kind of had to stay put where I was at. And then when, I got to working full time, making a little bit more money, and then I was able to, well, I tried to get this house. I tried to buy this house. I remember I tried to buy this house and that fell through and I wasn't able to get that. I got pre-approved for the mortgage and everything, but um, they wanted me to go in and do work to the house before I was able to get it and all that kind of stuff. So and I didn't have the money to do that, and I didn't have a really good down payment of what they was asking and everything. To make a long story short, it fell through and I wasn't able to get the house. I was very, very upset about that, devastated and all that, those good things. At that particular time, I was making more money, so that apartment complex I was in had a subsidy program. So that was when I dropped my Section 8 and got on the apartment complex subsidy to move into the two-bedroom townhouse. So I was eventually able to get the townhouse, but I had to give up my Section 8 to get the townhouse. And like I said, at that point, I was making a little bit more money, and I was able to afford to pay whatever the subsidy was, because that they had their own little government subsidy. And so, but I had to drop the Section 8 because the Section 8 wasn't going to give me enough money to cover that townhouse. So that was when I dropped my Section 8. And like on my one video where I'm talking about the Section 8 cuts, people kept accusing me of being on Section 8 because I was passionate about it. And I kept saying over and over, and I made the point many times that I gave up my Section 8. And I literally gave up my Section 8 because that was the only way that I could get the townhouse at that particular time, was to give up my Section 8. It just so happened to be that I was making enough money to where I could afford to get on their subsidy. So I gave my Section 8 up. So I mean, I'm not going to come on here and lie about anything. I don't have a reason to come on here and lie about anything. So when I say I don't have Section 8 and I gave it up, I'm speaking the truth. I did give it up. I literally did. So at that time, I mean, I didn't realize there was such a big stigma about being on Section 8. I had no idea at the time. But anyway, but I remember being in that apartment and really, really wanting to move and not being able to move because I didn't have the money, and it's hard to find something in my price range, and I didn't have the money. It was hard for me to come up with deposit and all that kind of stuff. So if you're poor and you're in a situation to where you want to move, um, you got to kind of stay put where you're at, because until you get up enough money to where you can move, you can't just up and move. Whereas when you're financially stable, and I'm not talking about rich, I'm talking about financially stable. There's a difference. When you're financially stable, if you want to move, then you can move. You know, you can get up the money and you can move. But when you're poor, see, people thing that a lot of things that people don't understand about poor people. There's a lot of misconceptions about the poor. Um, um, when you're poor and you're in poverty, you're so deep. I like to give it the analogy of a deep pit. That's the analogy I like to use when it comes to poverty. It's like a deep pit, falling into a deep pit, and you're trying to crawl your way out of it. As soon as you get up, like so, there's a little mudslide or dirt slide, and it knocks you back down. Then you got to try all over again. And that's the analogy that I like to use for poverty. Is like, as soon as you get up so high, something knocks you back down, and you're right back down to where you started. It is it's very, very difficult to get out of. I think I did a video um, way back in my archives about poverty. You guys bored one day. If you're bored one day, go through my videos. I'm thinking about doing another one on poverty, a more up to date one. But I did do a video talking about poverty. I love to use that analogy of a deep pit, because it literally is like a deep pit. It is so difficult to pull yourself out of it. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand about poverty. It's like, when you're in poverty, it is very, very difficult to pull yourself out of it. It is very, very hard to pull yourself out of poverty. It's like a deep pit. As soon as you get up so far, something knocks you back down. And that's something that people don't understand. It's like a vicious cycle. It's like a vicious cycle. And these employers, they don't want to pay you a livable wage, most majority of them. And a livable wage is enough to where um, you have enough money to pay for a roof over your head, and you have enough to meet the basic necessities that you need. I'm not talking about going out buying a brand new car or buy the best designer clothes and things like that. That's not what I'm talking about. You should be able to make enough to provide basic housing, decent basic housing, shelter for yourself, to buy food, and to just pay your basic living necessities like shelter, uh, any utilities that you have to pay, food, and necessities. You should be able to make enough to cover those things. And if you don't make enough to meet your basic necessities, if you're struggling to meet your basic necessities, then your employer is not paying you a livable wage. They're not paying you a livable wage if you don't even make enough to basically take care of your basic necessities that we all need, like shelter, utilities, food, you know, basic living necessities that we need. If you don't even make enough money to cover those things, then you're not making a livable wage. And most people are not making enough money to cover basic necessities. And there's times where it didn't matter how hard I worked, I was still, you know, lacking in a lot of areas, financially. And so you do have to you do have to ask for assistance. You do have to ask for food assistance. You do have to ask for, and don't be without health insurance and then have to go to the dentist or something like that. I've been through that before. That's a nightmare. But so it's just poverty. A lot of things that people don't understand about being in poverty. When you're in poverty, you have very limited options. Or try getting sick. And most of these employers, they give you a hard time when you get sick and you have to call in. Like my job now is like, at first, being a home care agency, they um, was very, very flexible. I still say they're very flexible, but they just adopted a new call-in policy. If you call in, you got to have a doctor slip every time you call in. And I'm not one of the people that call in all the time, but then I have to suffer for these people that do call in all the time. What if I got the flu and I can't get out of bed? There's times where I've gotten the stomach flu and I couldn't get out of bed. If I can't get out of the bed, how am I going to get to the doctor? You go through the process of going to the doctor, sitting in the waiting room, and you're pooping and you're vomiting all over the place. If you're that sick, you cannot get to a doctor, but they expect you to do this. So I'm a little frustrated about that because I don't I'm not one of those people that call in all the time. I've only called in 3 times, and I've been with this agency for 7 months, and I've only called in 3 times in 7 months. And you got some people that like to call in every week. When the roads get bad, they're calling in. They're calling and making every excuse in the book to call in. And so I gotta pay for these people that like to call in all the time. So and then I'm kind of venting right now. I'm getting off the subject, but when you get sick, these employers like to give you a hard time. On top of that, if you miss a day of work, that cuts your check down low. If you're already living from paycheck to paycheck and you have to miss a day or two of work, then that cuts down on the money that you have for your bills and stuff. And something is going to be lacking. You're already struggling living paycheck to paycheck, but then you get sick, or don't let your kids get sick. Don't let your kids get sick, and you have to call in and you miss time from work. Or worse yet, don't get sick and not have money to go buy medicine. Been through that before too. You get sick, you ain't got no money to buy no medicine. I try to keep medicine on hand. Um, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes you buy cold. You ever buy cold medicine or and Pepto Bismol and stuff like that, and you keep it, and then all of a sudden you get sick and you need this medicine, and you look at it and it's expired. I'm like, I don't know about you guys, but that happens to me a lot. It's like, okay, yeah, okay, I got that cough syrup in there, or I got that cold medicine. I goes to get it, and it's expired. Well, needless to say, I use it anyway. So that's just the frustrating thing for me. It's like, has it been that long since I've used it? Because you kind of like to have it on hand when you need it. As soon as you go to use it and you do need it, it's expired. And then if you broke and you ain't got the money to go out and buy some more, then you got what you got. And you just got to make do with what you got. So it's very difficult. I mean, I can name so many. analogies here, And so, but when you're financially stable, people that are financially stable, they don't have to worry about those things. They don't have to worry about um, getting sick and calling in and missing a day or two and having their check get cut down. And so, well, I was going to buy some groceries this week, or I was going to get a few groceries, but now I got to pay on the light bill, or I got to call the light company. I am the queen of making arrangements. It's like I am the queen of making arrangements. I got to call the cable company, or I got to call the light company, or the gas company and make some arrangements on, okay, now I'll get you $20 or $25 on the first. Okay, okay, now, okay, your balance is such and such. When can you have that in? Okay, well, I can't, okay, well, I'm gonna try to have some more to you in 2 weeks after that. And so you calling and you making arrangements and you letting them know when you can pay or whatever. I'm the queen of that. I done did that probably 50 million times in my lifetime. And so, something is going to be lacking. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and stuff like that. And so, but when you're financially stable, you don't have to worry about doing those things. You don't have to worry about any of those things. You miss time off work. Hey, you probably got a good enough paying job to where, in a decent enough job to where you got sick days. I know when I worked at the daycare, when I worked at this daycare, my last job, no sick days. You got these, after you work so many hours, you get 2 hours, and then eventually you build up 8 hours, that type of situation. And you got to use it for your vacation time, sick days, and personal days. Most jobs are, well, I won't say most jobs, but some jobs, they have it separate. They have your sick days, you got so many days in your sick days, and then you got so many days for your personal days. And some jobs even are nice enough to give you a week vacation after you've been there for a year. Well, the daycare, you didn't get no week vacation after you done been there a year. And usually after 2 years, you get, after you've been there for 2 years, you get 2 weeks, and so on and so forth. You didn't get that at the daycare. It was these hours that you build up. If you work so many hours, you get 2 hours, and then you get 4 hours, and next thing you know, you got 8 hours. And so you got to build up to, you got to not take no time off of work. And if you want to take a week vacation, you got to build up to 40 hours so you can take your week vacation. Well, luckily, we always had the weekends off, so I would combine my days off with my weekends. So I could take a Friday and a Monday off. Then I got a nice 4-day weekend. So I would combine them in like that. But it always used to frustrate me so much because they didn't give us any sick days. Who does that? Who has a daycare that doesn't give sick days? Who does that? But a lot of them, I mean, I won't say a lot of them, but the one I worked at didn't give us sick days. How often do you get sick working in a daycare? I got sick so much working at that daycare. I think that was most times I've ever been sick in my whole life when I worked at the daycare, because everybody knows that children are germ factories and they're always spreading something. So it's like, so it doesn't make sense to not give provide sick days. If you have a daycare, it doesn't make sense to not provide sick days for your employees. But they did. Well, they were all in the same bank, the days. And then you had, like I said, you had to build the hours up. So I hated that system. But they, like I say, it's when you are financially stable, when you have money, you have options, and you can, there's a lot of things that people that are financially stable, um, a lot of privileges and things that they have, and a lot of things that they can do that poor people cannot do, you know. And so, um, it's like I say, if I want to take a vacation, um, I can take a vacation. But now I can't just get up and take a vacation when I want to take one. You don't have to worry about when you're financially stable. You don't have to worry about like I said a minute ago, having to make arrangements on your bills, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Okay, I'm gonna have to hold off on the cable bill so I can pay the electric bill, and I'll stall the cable company so I can pay the electric bill. I gotta take this money and drop it on this electric bill because you know you gotta have your priorities straight. And I'll stall the cable company. Maybe I'll throw them $30 or so, stall them a little bit, and then if I get the shut off notice, I can make arrangements. Who does that? Who waits for shut off notices? I do. I wait for shut off notices. I literally do. I wait for shut off notices. I get a shut off notice every month for my water bill, and I pay it. I don't make arrangements. I just go and pay it. But I have wait for shut off. I'm gonna wait for the shut off notice. When the shut off notice comes, then I'll make the arrangements. Most people panic when they get a shut off notice. No, I wait for the shut off notices. I'm standing at my mailbox one day. I should be getting a shut off notice from the gas company, and I'm like, who does that? Who waits for a shut off notice? I do. I wait for shut off notices. But like I said, when you have money, I'm getting ready to check out. But anyway, like I said, when you have money, you have so many options. And when you're poor, you don't have any options. So I do think that money can provide a certain amount of security, and it can provide a certain amount of happiness because you have more options. You can do things. You're more flexible. You can call in sick. You don't have to worry about your check being cut short. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. If you manage your finances right, you have no worries when you are financially stable. But when you're poor, you're you know statistically people with more money, financially stable, middle class, and upper class, statistically they live longer because they don't have all that stress and worry. I mean, ultimately we got to trust God, and we have to put our trust and faith in Jehovah God, and He will provide. But yeah, I say that yes, I would say that money can provide a measure of happiness and security. Not complete happiness, not complete security, but yes, a measure. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. And I got some more interesting video topics coming up. This is Sweet Dreams.